The 10 biggest mistakes home sellers make when selling their home and potentially losing thousands of dollars. My name's Luke-Coventry, and with nearly 30 years of experience in real estate and having been involved in selling thousands of properties, I can give you the 10 most common mistakes that most home sellers make and tell you how to avoid these potentially costly mistakes. The first mistake people make is simply when choosing the real estate agent to represent them in the sale of their home. Now, most people will simply call in 1, 2, or 3 agents and typically go with the cheapest agent. So by that I mean the agent that charges them the lowest commission. So let's assume that the property value is $1 million. Agent A comes in and says they will charge you 1.5%, which is obviously $15,000 of the sale price. And agent B will charge you 2%, and that's $20,000. So you can already see that agent A is $5,000 cheaper, and it's quite easy to understand why most people would list their home with agent A. However, there's a lot more to the equation than this. You've really got to look at the ability of agent A and agent B. Agent A may be a new agent in the area. They may be an agent that's not very busy and just looking to almost buy a business. They'll drop their fees in order to get the business. Obviously, making $10,000 is better than making $0. So you've really got to analyze the situation before just choosing the cheapest agent. Majority of the time, the cheapest agent will cost you thousands of dollars and will be the most expensive agent when you see what's actually left in your pocket, which is really the most important thing. Now, as I said before in the example of $1 million home, the agent that charges 1.5%, they could be less experienced, not have the network, not be familiar with the area, not have sold similar homes to your home recently, and not backed potentially by a good brand or other agents. What if they go away and they're sick? Who's going to be looking after your home? So that agent could sell your home for $980,000, which then they would charge you $14,700, leaving you $965,300 in your pocket. While agent B comes along, charges you 2%, but creates competition on the home, gives you a selling strategy to maximize the dollars for your home, gives you some advice about styling, about preparation, presentation of your home in order to achieve the best possible result. So that agent creates competition on your home, creates a sense of urgency, gets multiple offers on the home and sells it for $1,012,500 at 2%. So instead of charging you $14,700, they've charged you $20,250, which leaves you $992,250 in your pocket. So that agent B, while initially you thought they were $5,000 more expensive, they've now actually made you nearly $27,000 in the end. So you're $26,950 better off in your pocket by choosing the supposedly more expensive agent in this scenario. On to the second point, which relates a little bit to the first point in selecting the right agent, but also not selecting the agent that just promises the highest possible price. And often that is tied in with the lowest commission. So the agent will come in, less experienced, really keen to get your business, not really familiar with the area, and just overprice it to try and win your business, and obviously charge you a lesser commission. And once again, home sellers time and time again will fall for that old trick by awarding, as we say in the business, the biggest liar often gets the business. The one who walks in, they know the home's probably only worth $1 million, but the owner, like most owners, think their home's possibly worth a little bit more than what it is. they want $1,050,000 or $1,080,000, and the agent just goes along with them and says, oh yeah, we can probably get you 1.1 and we're only going to charge you 1.5%. And then another agent comes in and says, okay, well, these are the comparable sales. This is how your home compares. Realistically, it's worth in the vicinity of $1 million, but certainly if we can get you more money, we will. And this is how we'll go about it. This is a process we'll follow. So it's really important that you don't just choose an agent based on the one that comes in and tells you the highest possible price. So really ask them to back up some evidence, show me the comparable sales that have sold for 1.1 million in this case, and have you been through that home? Did you sell that home? How did it compare to this one? So really do your homework, and as a seller you really should have an idea of where your home sits in the marketplace. While of course we want 1.1 million, but realistically, what is your home worth? It may only be worth $1 million, and it's not an exact science, so whether it's going to be worth 990,000 or $1,020,000, it's going to be in that ballpark. And if an agent can extract that extra $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 by competition, they'll naturally do that. Probably the third biggest mistake home sellers make is going with an agent that says they'll do no sale, no charge. Unfortunately, they normally deliver on both of these promises. That is, they don't charge you any advertising and they don't sell your home. Now, most people think, okay, well, why should I pay for marketing? Let the agent pay for the marketing. If they're telling me they can get $1 million, well, go for it, but I'm not going to be paying the marketing. Well, times have changed in this day and age. You really need to get out there on a wide reach on the internet, good quality photography, floor plans, brochures, social media if required, etc. All these things cost money. And you need to invest that money into the property. And it's very rare that we don't sell a property, to be honest. So people make that investment. It creates competition and urgency around the home. Now, the worst thing you can do is obviously give it to that agent just because they're not charging you marketing. They will then cut corners. They'll then become desperate to try and sell it. And if you've already committed and bought another property, they'll feed off that, knowing that you have to sell. And suddenly initially you're thinking they probably told you get $1,050,000, $1,080,000, and suddenly you're looking at offers at $920,000, $930,000, and they're telling you that's a great price because everyone that's come through the home is giving them offers at $900,000 or $850,000, and suddenly you're thinking, oh my God, what have I done here? I'm suddenly $100,000, $150,000 less than what this agent was telling me 6 or 8 weeks ago, and you've really got no choice but to sell because now you've become desperate and really need to sell the home. And even if you're not in that position where you haven't purchased another home, thankfully you haven't, then you've also created a footprint online which you can't get rid of, that your property's now sat there for 2 or 3 months with that agent, hasn't sold, and there's a digital footprint of that home. So it then makes it a little bit more difficult for the next agent to come along and try to sell your home. The fourth biggest mistake we see home sellers making is lack of presentation of the home. Have a look online at homes that are selling in your area, and the ones that actually hit the market and suddenly they're sold in 2, 3, 4 weeks time. I would have a guess that the majority of those homes have been styled by a professional stylist. The agents come in, recommend that they need to clean up the garden, paint the front fence, paint the walls inside, or whatever the case may be, steam clean the carpets, have a professional come in and give you some advice on styling the home. They can add little tweaks, little touches to the home to make it light and bright and airy, which will definitely create a sense of a home that is much loved and people can see themselves living in. So it's when you walk in a home and maybe there's a stench of dogs or cats, animals, that sort of smell, and it's cluttered. that as an agent, we stand at the front door, we see people walk in and we see their facial expressions, and they basically want to get out of that home very quickly. And they're typically the homes that sit on the market for months and months at a time and eventually sell for a lower price. So presentation is absolutely king in this day and age, that's for sure. The fifth biggest mistake we see is not accepting an early offer. And I think if you go back 20, 30, 40 years ago, and certainly my parents' age, when they were started selling properties, 30 or 40 years ago or more, they got told, don't accept the first offer, don't accept the first offer. There'll be a better offer around the corner. And that may have been true back then, because obviously the reach out to potential buyers was very limited. It was a day of, local papers and those sort of things. There was no internet. So, your property would be on the market for a week and you might have 5 or 6 buyers through, and, only 5 or 6 buyers have seen your home. But in this day and age, it hits, the major portals such as realestate.com and Domain. And most properties in the first 24 hours have had 500 to 800 views, and then you have it open on the Saturday, and suddenly you've had, maybe 10, 20, 30 buyers through. And it is all about quality of buyers as well. Sometimes you only got 4 or 5 through, but you've got 2 or 3 of those wanting to make an offer on the home. And I always say to my clients, it's not how long the property's been on the market. It's how long the buyer has been in the marketplace searching for a home. So they're on all the portals, on realestate.com, trawling through, signed up to e-brochures. And so as soon as a new property's put online, they're straight onto it. They're calling us as the agent, they're emailing us, asked to be sent to Section 32, asking what sort of settlement they're looking at, asking if they can get through the property earlier or if they have to wait till the first open home. And they're good buyers that have often missed out recently on other homes, and they'll be purchasing a home in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So they've seen your home, they've come through, they've made a decision that this is the home for them. And you might have it on a range of 900 to 990,000. They come in and offer you, $1 million or $1.10 million to take it off the market and secure that home. And quite often you see vendors knock that offer back and then live to regret it 6 weeks later. So don't make that mistake. Certainly listen to your agent, take their advice. Plenty of times I've said to people, no, we won't take this offer because it's maybe at the lower end of the range and I believe we can get more, but there's a lot of times where we get a good offer and I'm giving the advice to those sellers to get it sold and move on. So the sixth biggest mistake we see is really vendors treating the agent like an enemy, like they're hiding things from the agent. And you should never do that. I mean, number one, you should be working with an agent that you trust, that you like. It's no point signing up with an agent just because they're number one agent in the area if you've got no trust in their ability or think that they're not a good character. You've got to work with these people for the next couple of months often. Obviously it may take 4 or 6 weeks to sell, and then you've got 2 or 3 months settlement, so it's quite a drawn out process. So the vendor and the agent really need to be working together as a common goal to get the best possible price. So that communication needs to be open. I don't think you need to be talking daily, but certainly after every inspection, you should have the feedback from the agent on what's happening, where are we at with this property. I know Jealous Craig have got a system now called Jealous Craig Live, where as soon as your property is listed on the major portals, within 24 hours as a vendor, you get a link where you can see all the insights to your property. So how many people have seen it on the portals, how many people have engaged with it, how many people come through the open homes. You can see the first names of the buyers that have come through. You can see the agents' feedback that they've put into that system on what the buyers thought on your home. So it's like a 24/7 property report on your home. So you're really never guessing where you're at with the sale of your property, which is fantastic. So the next biggest mistake we see, the seventh mistake, is not allowing open homes and not allowing a signboard to go up, or not really listening to the agent's advice. We've really got limited tools when we're selling a home. It's, like a mechanic, if they're working on your car, the last thing you're going to do is, take away all their spanners and things like that and tie one hand behind their back. They've only got limited tools they can work with, and it's the same with real estate. We've got a signboard there for a reason. We've got the internet there for a reason. We've got brochures for a reason. All those little things, while they may seem insignificant, I've heard over nearly 30 years of real estate, people say, oh, but Luke, we live in a quiet court. No one's going to drive past our home and see a for sale board. Well, that might be the case, you would think, but I can tell you now it's certainly not the case. As soon as we put that property onto realestate.com, as soon as we notify our database of buyers, we're basically directing traffic through to your little court. And the first thing people see when they drive into that court is a nice big for sale sign that's got a couple of internal photos of your home so that you can really show it off and engage those people with your home and get them to come through your home. The last thing you want to do is for them to drive in the court and look around and go, well, I wonder which home it is for sale, and then drive off. So really, what the agent advises, listen to them. You've engaged them for a reason. They are a professional for a reason. And, as I said, the criteria before, if they've got that experience, if they've sold similar homes in the area, there's generally, ingredients that they need to use in order to get that best result. The next one I look at is an agent or agency not having a database. Not having a track record of selling similar homes in the area. So while, quite often we sell a home out of the area, we certainly would know the area. I won't sell a home that's an hour away from the office as an example. But it's really important, that an agent has the experience and two, has the database. And I think, we're blessed obviously with a company like a Jealous Craig that has got 40 odd offices all over Melbourne and the one central database. So obviously, for instance, I've got a property that I've listed at the moment for some good clients. It's 25 minutes away from where I normally sell, but I've engaged one of the local agents in that area to help me sell the property. So the next biggest mistake I see home sellers making is really choosing the wrong method of sale for the home. And once again, this comes down obviously to the real estate agent's ability to give you advice on how best to sell your home. It's no point saying, I want to auction the home if it's not the right market or not the right property to auction the home, and vice versa. We don't want to look at an auction. It's definitely just a private sale. You really want to engage with that agent that sort of pushes back, doesn't just go along with what you are suggesting, but really gives some reason behind that. So you might say, no, I'm definitely, not wanting to auction the home. And in this case, the agent could say, okay, I understand, why the reasons you don't want to auction. Have you had a bad experience with that in the past? These are the reasons I think we should auction this particular home. It's in a great location. It's where, we see a lot of people are wanting this, I'm making this up now, like this single level, 4-bedroom family home, close to the shopping centre, close to the train station, close to schools. There's a very limited supply of homes like this in the area. And we know we've got, multiple buyers will be looking for something similar to this, and it'll create great urgency and competition with an auction on this home. Now, by all means, you don't have to auction it, but if you've asked me today for my professional advice, and I'd certainly be advising you that we should be auctioning your home. And then on the flip side of that, you don't want to be saying, yes, I definitely want to auction it if it's not the right home to auction. And once again, a good agent can explain to you the reasons why you wouldn't auction it and why you would do a private sale. And some of those reasons might be the case of there's only going to be 1 or 2 potential buyers for this home. There's a lot of other homes similar to this on the marketplace at the moment that have been sitting there for 2 or 3 months on the market and not selling. And we're seeing some great results where often we see one buyer at $900,000 and the next buyer at $980,000. So there's an $80,000 difference in those two offers, and that wouldn't happen at an auction. The next bid at an auction, if one buyer's at 900, the other buyer's got 980, the next bid might be 905 or $910,000, and then we're going to have to pass the property in. So we don't want to expose your position out on the street on that Saturday afternoon. The last one I'd be very careful with, which is a little bit controversial, is an off-market sale. While there's certainly a place for them, we've done many of them over the years, you've really got to ensure that the agency or the agent that you're asking through that home has a database of buyers, and they can get a good variety of buyers through your home, not just one buyer coming through or two buyers coming through. I would suggest you really want 6 or 8 or 10 good quality buyers coming through your home. Not buyers that are just looking, not neighbours walking past. These are buyers that have missed out on other properties recently. They've been looking in the marketplace for 2, 3, 4 months. The agent can demonstrate, can show you on their database that they've been through 10, 20, 30 other homes in the area and they've made offers. So they're genuine, real buyers. And that way you know when you get an offer if it's going to be a good offer or not, or whether you should take the risk and actually go to market. So they're my top 10 reasons and things I see where home sellers really can make costly mistakes when selling their home, but it all does come down to employing a good agent from day one. So I'm more than happy to have a chat to you about that anytime. Ask questions in the comments down below, and I'd love to assist you. Until next time, take care and have a great day. Thank you.